All right, so thank you all for being here, of course, to the 5th annual Al Dia Lawyers Award event. We're so happy to have you here and that you took time away from your families. And it's so nice to see so many friendly faces in the crowd to help us celebrate these deserving honorees. The fifth annual award ceremony, which, if you can believe it, means that something like 25 Hispanic lawyers will have won this award after tonight, which some of you know more than others is a huge deal. I know a lot of you were practicing when there was like 25 total Hispanic lawyers in the tri-state area. So we've come a long way, and we really appreciate you being here to celebrate these folks with us. My name is JP Faunis. Yeah, absolutely. I don't deserve it, but I appreciate it. I am the outgoing, we all hope, Hispanic Bar Association of Pennsylvania president for this year. And I'm so thrilled to get to help you guys celebrate 5 Hispanic attorneys who are very well deserving of this accolade, who've reached a level of excellence in their own practices and in their standing in the community that is very, very deserving of this effort on behalf of all of you who are here to help celebrate. So thank you for being here. We're also, of course, here to celebrate one individual who means a tremendous amount to so many of us, Judge Sarmina, who's with us here, with the Lifetime Achievement Award. And that's for not only the effect and the guidance she's given so many of us here in the Philadelphia area and in the Commonwealth, but honestly because of some of the work that she's done on the bench, the effect that she's had for Hispanic and Latino lawyers throughout the country. So we appreciate you being here for her as well. I will say that it's been a difficult last couple of years for everyone, but Latinos have not been excluded from the ramifications of that difficulty. And we are a population, a culture that is, I would say, very well placed to deal with and to succeed within the confines of this current struggle. Our dedication to community, our dedication to work is well reflected in our honorees here today. So it means the world to us that you would come and do the important work of recognizing folks who really do put in the effort to be our stalwarts, to be our standard bearers in the community. It means so much to all of us, and we really appreciate it. I need to thank several people for tonight. I'm advised, and I don't know what it means, but I'm advised that should you feel the urge, we would like you to use the hashtag #AldiaLive or the hashtag #OurLawyers. That has to do with the internet, so if any of you are young, use the hashtag. And thank you to the Al Dia team for putting together this exceptional program, and also to the advisory board, who's present here, and Jen Gomez. Thank you, Jen. Yeah!
You gotta be your own cheerleader
There you go, girl, get it. You're not shy about that. And then, my girl, and Renee Garcia, who's also with us. Where's Renee? Renee's the chair of the litigation department of the city of Philadelphia. That's a really big job, and she's taken time away from it to be with us here today. And Frank Lafontaine, who's not here but probably deserves applause too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a vice president at Comcast, and he's extraordinarily handsome and competent. If you see him, tell him I said that. The work also would not be possible without our sponsors, Barnard College, Berger Montague, and Cap Law LLC. So we really appreciate our sponsors, as well as, that's I guess we should do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course the Pyramid Club, our partner for hosting us. Thank you so much. And to begin the formal program here, I'd like to welcome someone who you all know very well, the founder and CEO of Al Dia News, Hernan Huaracao. Where are you, sir? There you are. Thank you very much. Please come up.
Okay, let me just start by saying gracias. Thank you to everybody for coming tonight. I know it's difficult to come to in-person events. Still, I was concerned about the pandemic, but I really appreciate your effort to be here tonight, because I think the people you're gonna meet tonight deserve your presence, and I really would like to start by naming them, because they are the very reason why we're here. They are our honorees: Kathy Gomez, Henry Marcial, Henry Marcial, hold your applause until the end, please. Oh, you do it the way you please. Henry Marcial, Lorena Ahumada, Alex Gomez, and Maria Carrilla. And of course, Honorable Teresa Sarmina, who will be recognized today for a Life Achievement Award recipient. I would like to say to all of them, we're here because of you. Because of your careers, because of your effort to be outstanding lawyers, as you should be deserve to be recognized. Not often be recognized as such, but we decided that this was about time that we do this on an annual basis. And we're glad that we had arrived year number 5 of doing this recognition, or do recognition of the lawyers in the city. I'd like to say also thank you to the sponsors. Barnard College, Berger, Montague, and Cap Law LLC, our supporters tonight. Of course, the Hispanic Bar Association that had been a partner in this effort. I would like to say thank you for believing that Aldea can add to the work that you guys do. I know you do your own recognitions to the lawyers, but I think the public recognition that we can do through media can be one step further, and I'm so glad that you allow us to work with you. To the advisory board, of course, thank you for your guidance in making this event possible. Jennifer Gomez, TP, and of course members Rene Garcia and Mark Lafontaine. Thank you so much. To all the staff, thank you so much, guys, for the effort. I know this takes time, effort, patience, and it's a lot of work. And I'm so glad that you guys did it without me. And this is a testament to your capacity to do the work on your own. And I think it's also a demonstration that Aldea is coming of age, and there are a new generation taking over to support getting these kind of programs organized with their own convictions and their own capacity to get things done. What is the situation today? In Pennsylvania, there are over 50,000 lawyers, and yet less than 2% of them are Hispanic. So we have probably less than 1,000 lawyers of Latino descent in Pennsylvania. As of January 1st, 2020, there were 1,328,000 active lawyers in the United States, up roughly 10% from the past decade. However, primary drivers of growth continue to be white men and to a lesser extent, white women. Recent gains among people of diverse communities are minimal. Just 5% of all lawyers are black, the same percentage as 10 years ago, while 13.4% of the population is black. Comparably, 5% of all lawyers are Hispanic, up from 4% a decade earlier, although 18.5% of the US population is Hispanic today. For Latinos, these numbers are even smaller. Latinos account for less than 2% of Hispanic American lawyers. 2% of all lawyers are Asian, only 0.4% from 10 years ago, while almost 6% of the US population is Asian American. As of July 1st, 2020, the US Senate has confirmed 196 people to 200 federal judgeships during 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Of those appointed, 85% were white, 6% were Asian, 4% were black, and 4% were Hispanic. We have a problem, of course, here, and it will need all of us to be involved to address it. Aldea Total Lawyers was created 5 years ago to address the obvious fact that our lawyers, although still in small numbers, didn't show in any of the list of top lawyers in the city. We decided to look for them, and we found plenty of them, many worthy of the recognition as top lawyers of our city. So we decided to go ahead and create the Aldea Top Lawyers, where dozens of lawyers of Latino descent were finally being acknowledged, and they're finally here to be called what they are, top lawyers. Tonight, we also present a scholarship, the Nelson Diaz Scholarship, to all students selected by the Hispanic Bar Association. We're making a contribution of $5,000 to this new person that is coming to law school, eventually becoming a lawyer, and eventually, hopefully, recognized in the years to come at this podium. Nelson Diaz, as you know, has been the pioneer in the law field, and we believe his courageous journey should inspire the new generation. as much as it is a true inspiration, the life and career of our Life Achievement Award recipient, Judge Teresa Sarmina. Please help me salute all of them with a well-deserved round of applause, please. Now it's my privilege to introduce our honored guest, Ramona Romero. Ramona Romero is the Vice President and General Counsel of Princeton University. At the University, Chief Legal Officer Ramona is a member of its senior management team. She advises the trustees, the president, and other senior administrative and academic officers on the legal implications of university policy and decision-making. She leads the team of lawyers and administrative professionals in the Office of the General Counsel for the prestigious Princeton University. She joined the university after nearly 4 years as General Counsel of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, a Senate-confirmed position for which she was appointed by President Barack Obama. At the USDA, Ramona advised Secretary Vilsack and other senior department leaders and led a team of over 300 legal and ethics professionals. Previously, she held a variety of legal roles in major multinational corporations and was a white-collar government contracts and commercial litigator of the Washington, D.C.-based law firms. Please join me in welcoming Ramona Romero.
Just in case. Muy buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
It's good to see you all. Let me see. I have to make sure I can see my speech, actually. As I was sharing with some of us, it's been a while since I've stood in front of an audience. The pandemic has really had an impact on us, so I hope you'll bear with me. So good evening. Hernan, many thanks for the invitation and for the kind introduction. I'm delighted to be here tonight to honor 6 of Pennsylvania's and the country's most distinguished lawyers. Please join me again in applauding Alex, Maria, Lorena, Catherine, Henry, and of course, Judge Sarmina for their dedication to the community, to the profession, and to the public. I have known most of them for decades. That means since I was 3. And I know that they have earned this recognition. I will start by confessing that I have had a difficult time settling on a message for tonight. This is a celebratory occasion, highlighting a half dozen of the best and brightest in our community. We certainly need people and occasions to celebrate. I want to avoid being the proverbial Eeyore, from Winnie the Pooh, but I cannot fail to at least acknowledge that the last few years have been a period of reckoning for our country and for each of us. I will mention 3 things to start. First, and at the risk of stating the obvious, the pandemic has been and continues to be a challenge for all of us. And in the process, it has highlighted the many structural inequalities that afflict our community. The impact of long-term economic and healthcare disparities has meant that Latinos and Blacks and the poor more generally have suffered unduly as a result of this pandemic. Second, we have all witnessed unspeakable public violence against people of color, from the killing of George Floyd in 2020 to the disgraceful pursuit of migrants by Border Patrol agents on horseback in 2021. While I wish that we had not seen that, while I wish we had been spared, I'm comforted by the fact that it brought us together and it created a new realm of activism in the country. We got together to demand justice for Mr. Floyd and a more just society for all. Companies and institutions in all sectors of society, including Princeton, have publicly acknowledged that structural racism is real and that it limits the opportunities of millions of Americans. That recognition and the public commitments many institutions have made in response to correct the inequities are reasons for hope. Third, this last January, we saw the gravest threat to the democratic institutions of our nation. An armed challenge to the presidential transition is not something I could have ever imagined. And January 6 was not a singular event. It was the culmination of 4 years of political violence done to our institutions. Why am I highlighting these events? I offer them as context for what I am about to ask of each of you. Many of us had fought really hard to ascend the ranks of our profession. We lead complex lives, full of obligations, with very little free time. But we are lawyers, at least the majority of us here are lawyers, and as lawyers, we are the architects of justice. Each of us has the tools needed to create a more perfect union envisioned by the U.S. Constitution. The union that delivers on the promise of equal justice, the promise of domestic tranquility, the promise of general welfare, and the promise of liberty for all of the people, not just the rich, not just the powerful, all of the people. Despite the discord that is common in our public life these days, I, like Amanda Gorman, believe that we live in a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We live in a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. In my view, it is both our privilege and our obligation to lead the building effort. We cannot realize our constitutional aspirations without the robust engagement of Latinos. As Hernan said, Hispanics represent 19% of the population, the second largest ethnic group. We are also by far the fastest growing group, accounting for over 51% of the growth in the last decade. We are young, or at least you are. 26% of Americans under 18 are Latinos. We're making gains in education. As of 2019, 21% of Latinos over 25 were college grad, in contrast to 10% the 20 years before. In our community political engagement, and this is important, our political engagement is also growing. In the 2020 election, for the first time ever, more Latinos registered to vote than Black Americans. And in addition to that, 80% of those Latinos who registered actually voted. In short, Latinos have the demographic strength to drive the economic, cultural, and political life of our country now and for centuries to come. Demographically, Latinos are the future. So, of course, as always, we need leaders like you to help our community realize its collective potential and to address the many inequities that still confront us. According to the Census Bureau, Hispanic families have the second lowest median income of any population group. Latino children have the second highest high school dropout rate. And we're overrepresented among the poor, that is, among people who live below the poverty line, and in the prison population. At the same time, there are not nearly enough Hispanics in the corridors of power. To paraphrase the musical Hamilton, more often than not, Hispanics are outside the room where it happens. We are underrepresented in government. We are underrepresented in the management ranks in businesses. And here I will cite to an article that Aldea published last February, noting that only 16 of the CEOs of the S&P 500 were Latinos. And by the way, none of them were women. That's a bit of a problem too. So Hispanics continue to be underrepresented. Despite years of advocacy, we continue to be underrepresented in the legal profession. As Hernan mentioned, 5%, only 5% of the 1.3 million American lawyers in the year 2000 were Hispanic. Obviously, this picture has to change. And we are among the best people to help change it. Every decision made by government, by every large company, by every major societal institution impacts us and it impacts our families. Having our perspectives at the table makes a difference in the setting of priorities and the allocation of resources. To illustrate, I know this from personal experience in government, personal experience in a large company, and now personal experience at Princeton. To illustrate, in 2017, Princeton decided to file a case along with one of his students to challenge the rescission of DACA, right? Our position ultimately prevailed in the US Supreme Court, and we helped to make a difference in the lives of hundreds of dreamers who depended on the protection of the program. As you might guess, As you might guess, I'm proud that Princeton was only one of 2 institutions of higher education to take a stance in that way. One of only 2. The other one was the University of California, which was led by Janet Napolitano, who created the DACA program in the first place. So I'd like to think, right, that the fact that I'm the general counsel actually mattered in the decision-making process. As people always say in Washington, D.C., personnel is policy. By leading in politics, in the professions, in industry, in academia, and everywhere else, we can help ensure that our nation and our community realize their promise. That is why I'm particularly delighted that tonight's honorees represent every sector of the profession. We need more judges like Teresa and more prosecutors like Maria to drive the fair administration of justice. We need more general counsel like Alex to ensure that industry contributes to the economic well-being of our people. We need more leaders like Lorena, who is unfortunately unable to be here tonight, but we need leaders at major law firms to ensure that our community receives its fair share of their financial and pro bono resources. We need more legal entrepreneurs like Henry to redefine success both inside and outside of our profession. And last but far from least, we need more public interest leaders like Kathy. To ensure that legal representation in civil cases is available to even the poorest among us. The honorees' long histories of leadership within the Latino bar and the community generally offers us a variety of examples to follow. Tonight's event demonstrates that their hard work matters. So, to switch gears a little bit, I want to end by sharing some of my personal history, both because Hernan asked me to, and to explain why I remain committed to service and optimistic about this country. As I often put it, I'm Dominican by birth and an American by choice. I am an American by choice. I owe this country an enormous debt of gratitude. It is imperfect, but for me, it proved to be the land of opportunity. Based on my circumstances growing up, not one of you would have predicted that I would be standing before you tonight. I started life in a poor neighborhood in Santo Domingo. When I was nearly 11, I joined my mother in New York City, where she had immigrated 4 years earlier, leaving me behind. Until I could get my green card, right? And she could petition for me. She raised me alone. She worked in a factory to put food on the table. When I joined her in the United States, I could not speak a word of English. And she too spoke only Spanish. Even when times were good, our resources were meager, and we sometimes had to rely on food stamps to put food on the table. Social scientists would tell you that kids who grow up in the circumstances I grew up in are not likely to graduate from high school. Yet, despite the many hardships I faced growing up, 8 years after I landed at Kennedy Airport on a very cold January night, I remember it 40 years later, I entered one of the most selective colleges in this country. 15 years after my arrival, I graduated from Harvard Law School. Within 3 decades, I found myself managing over $100 million worth of legal business every year for what was then one of the country's largest and oldest companies. And in 2010, as Hernan mentioned, I had the great privilege of being nominated by President Obama and confirmed by the U.S. Senate as General Counsel of the United States Department of Agriculture, the same department that administers the food stamp program. I was then the only person of color and only the third woman to serve in that position in its 115-year history. Now, I serve as the chief legal officer of one of our nation's leading universities, again, the first person of color and the first woman to serve in that role. At the Department of Agriculture, the person who succeeded me was my deputy, who was also a Latino, just saying. Anyway, I share these facts, not to toot my own horn, but because they explain my faith in our possibilities as individuals and as a country. However far Hispanics and other communities of color still have to travel down the road to equality, we do still live in a nation where stories like mine are possible. That's where we still live. And we are, a nation where stories like mine are possible, and where all of us are still free to use our voices and our skills to help make a difference. That, I think, is special, and it is worth fighting for. It is worth fighting for. Just remember what President Obama once said. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change we seek. So let's continue the good work. Good night, and thank you for listening.
Ramona, thank you so much. If any of you ever have the opportunity, try not to follow Ramona after her speech. Thank you also for the food stamps. I appreciate it. That was an extraordinary and poignant summation of the possibilities of our community. Thank you for listening. What do you got?
I'm just gonna hook you up real quick.
Yeah, put it up.
Yeah, because we want to hear you.
Oh.
Don't
Can you
go
hear me in the back?
crazy.
Can y'all hear me in the back?
You're a trial
want me in
attorney.
the back?
Let's go. Come on.
Thank you very much, Jen, and for your many cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ramona. That was an incredible speech. To the point, if I could make a point of one aspect of that speech, Will Gonzalez covered this for the Inquirer recently. I hope you all read it. We would have had anemic growth in this Commonwealth and a loss of representation at the table in the House of Representatives, but for the influx of Latinos into the Commonwealth between 2010 and 2020. A net of plus 330,000 up to 1 million Latinos, many of them in North Philadelphia, but many more of them in the Lehigh Valley. And a loss of that representation would have been a loss of stake, would have been a loss of agency in the seat of power in this country. And Ramona's story is your story, and it's a story of possibility, and I hope that you understand that what Aldea does is serve as an institution owned by one of our own that is as important to the success of our story as us doing the work. You being here to hear this is extremely important, and we appreciate you so much. The awardees, their CVs are all very long, so I have to read them. But we'll begin with the award ceremony, it says. Our first recipient of the evening is Kathy Gomez of Community Legal Services. I know 3/4 of you all know her, but I'm still going to tell you who she is. Kathy is serves as the Deputy Director of Legal Practice for CLS, where she provides leadership and support to the team of managing attorneys, assuring legal services reach the highest standard for the indigent of Philadelphia. CLS provides those legal services free of charge to thousands of low-income Philadelphians every year, folks who are facing the threat of losing their income, losing their homes, losing their very families. CLS, in addition to being one of the largest nonprofit legal service providers in the country, is also home to some of our favorite people, and some of them are here with us tonight, so thank you for joining us. She also serves as an appointed member of the Pennsylvania Interbranch Commission for Gender, Racial, and Ethnic Fairness, is a board member of the Attic Youth Center, and is a former board member of Galea. Kathy is a graduate of Columbia University, you don't say, congratulations, and she earned her JD from Pennsylvania Law School. Please welcome Kathy Gomez to the stage. Let's take a quick picture. I'll hold this for you.
One more, please.
Oh, you bet. The more the better.
Does this podium make me look short? It's an extra large podium, it's not me. That was a truly moving and beautiful speech. I feel really inspired, Vice President Romero. I'm truly honored to receive this award and be in the company of the incredible group of judges, lawyers, and leaders being recognized today, and my sincere congratulations to all of the awardees. Thank you so much to Aldea and everyone here today. I grew up in a low-income immigrant community in New York City. My mother immigrated from India, and my father, who's here today, came from Colombia. Growing up, I saw my family and my neighbors fall victim to predatory lending, financial scams, foreclosures, discrimination, wage theft, to just name a few. Growing up, I watched people I loved not know where to turn for help, and their attempts to seek justice were often marred by misinformation, language barriers, and fear that irrelevant issues like their immigration status would be brought up to intimidate and humiliate them. My experiences growing up led me to a career in public interest law at Community Legal Services to push for meaningful equal access to justice, and to serve on the PA Interbranch Commission. At CLS, our mission is to fight poverty and to challenge systems that perpetuate injustice. We help more than 10,000 people each year, and we engage in community education, high-impact litigation, and systemic advocacy to change laws and policies, to disrupt what is happening. We do this in partnership with many other organizations and community groups so that we can be truly accessible and to meet people where they are. I started my career at CLS 22 years ago in the courtroom, representing many parents in the child welfare system. I again saw firsthand the ways that poverty and systemic injustice could create the kind of environment where families got destabilized and torn apart. People continue to come to CLS every day on the verge of losing everything that's important to them: their children, their homes, their utilities, their ability to live independently in the community, their ability to get treatment and medication to survive. Now, as Deputy Director of Legal Practice at CLS, I help support all of this work, but none of this would be possible without the incredible work of the individual advocates, the more than 150 advocates at CLS who fight every day for justice. I'm grateful to be part of that team. A special thank you to Debbie Friedman, who has mentored me and provided inspiration to me and others who are engaged in this fight. Finally, thank you to my dear father, Carlos Gomez, and my family and friends who are here today. I appreciate your unwavering love, guidance, and sacrifices. Again, thank you so very much for this honor.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Our recipient in the category of small firm is Henri Marcial. Henri is the... What's up, brother? Come on up here.
I really got to work on my social media.
Oh, yeah. You look better in real life. Henri is the founding partner of Marcial and Associates and is currently a principal at Marcial and Hay. He has more than 30 years of business and management experience, including 23 years as a licensed attorney, providing legal services and contract management, negotiations, regulatory compliance, risk management, real estate sales, management, and litigation. So if any of you have those issues, you know where to come. He's right here. He's also served as an arbiter and mediator in Philadelphia Common Pleas Court and around the Commonwealth. He's a board member of the Hispanic Bar Association. We're proud to have you. And a member of the Minority Bar Committee of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. He's a graduate of Catholic University of Puerto Rico and, of course, Temple University Beasley School of Law. My man.
All right, hold on. Thank you. Good evening. I really cannot embellish or describe the state of affairs any better than the previous speakers here today. That is our landscape. With that in mind, my clientele are the community members. Your little corner mechanic, the bogadero, your grandmother who needs a will, the young couple starting their own business. Those are my clients, that is my community, those are the people I serve. With that in mind, I'm going to keep this very short and very sweet. Buenas noches, gracias. Eso es un honor para mí muy sincero de nuestra comunidad. Gracias a Jaldía y el comité de nominación. El ejercer de derecho es difícil. Es rara la ocasión en la cual somos reconocidos en una manera tan pública a nuestros servicios a la comunidad. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Henri. Our next honoree is in the category of mid to large size firm. Her name is Lorena Akumara. Lorena is of counsel and employment and compliance officer for Kleinbard LLC. Unfortunately, she was not able to be with us here this evening. She practices in the area of complex commercial litigation and employment litigation and counseling, as well as insurance coverage. She's a member of the Hispanic Bar Association as well. She's also a past president of our organization and a past president of the Legal Education Fund, to which Aldia has given a generous gift in the amount of $5,000 on an annual basis. She's also the only Chilena who's being honored here tonight. I assume that's an oversight on the part of the committee. And she has been kind enough to send a video along that we'll play for you now.
Good evening. I'm so sorry I could not be there in person to thank you all, but I'm sending this video to thank Aldia and the advisory committee for this tremendous honor. I am humbled to be included with such a distinguished group. I want to congratulate the other awardees, and in particular, Judge Teresa Sarmina on her Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you all. This means a great deal to me.
Our next honoree is in the category of in-house counsel. He is the Vice President and General Counsel and Corporate Secretary for Braven Environmental, an advanced plastics processing and technology company. He has worked in private practice, representing underwriters, initial purchasers, placement agents, and issuers in Act 33 and Act 34 securities matters. I have no clue what that means, but I'm sure it's very impressive. He's a Board of Directors and Special Committees member, and has been connected to governance matters and conflicted transactions for his entire career. He previously served as an external corporate secretary for a NASDAQ-listed publicly traded company. He's an active member of the community. He served in organizations in the nonprofit sector, as well as counsel and as a board member for the Hispanic Bar Association. That's Mr. Alex Gonzalez, if you wouldn't mind joining us up here on the stadium.
We all have equal challenges with the podium, just the same. I would like to start by thanking Aldia, Hernan Garazao, and the advisory board, Jennifer Gomez Hardy, JP Fones, Renee Garcia, and Frank Lafontaine for selecting me as one of your 2021 top lawyers. I'm honored to be in the presence of giants in our community, like Ramona Romero, the Honorable Teresa Sarmina, my fellow 2021 top lawyers, the exemplary lawyers and people who have been honored here before, and so many of you here in the room today. This recognition has a special place in my heart because of where we stand today and who we are in the presence of. We're in the presence of Philadelphia lawyers in the city of Philadelphia. Historically, the term Philadelphia lawyers means best trained and exceptionally skilled in law and rhetoric. I've come to learn that means much more. I've come to learn that it means giving back and helping our neighbors and our communities. It means working hard towards ensuring that those in need have representation and access and opportunity under the law. It means treating others with kindness, dignity, and respect. It means endeavoring towards what is fair and just. It means sacrifice for the benefit of others. These are things that I've come to adopt as part of what it means to be a Philadelphia lawyer. By learning from, watching, and witnessing each of you and all that we do to lift up our communities. I'm going to keep this speech short because, as JFK said, as we express gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not the uttering words, but to live by them. I encourage you all to continue to live and practice as a Philadelphia lawyer should, by giving back, paying it forward, and ensuring that our community is strong together. I'm certainly going to continue to do that while walking with and standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you all for the opportunity, the honor, and the responsibility.
Our next honoree is in the category of government attorney. She is an assistant United States attorney in the U.S. Department of Justice in Philadelphia, a role she has served in since 2006. She is a recipient of the DOJ Director's Award for Superior Performance. She's a seasoned prosecutor specializing in financial crimes. She's tried over 25 jury trials and more than 300 bench trials, if you can believe it. She also supervises and leads teams of federal prosecutors, agents, and financial analysts with a fierce commitment to advancing the rights of the Hispanic community in the region. She's an active member of the Hispanic Bar Association of Pennsylvania. She graduated with her law degree from George Washington University Law School. Please put your hands together for Maria Carrillo.
Oh, can we reset this? Thank you for having me. Congratulations to the other top lawyers. I want to join the chorus of thanks to Aldea, to everybody from Aldea for making this possible, and especially to Hernan. Hernan, you had a vision to create a newspaper, but you also had a mission to advocate for our community, and I thank you for everything that you do every day. I owe a debt of gratitude to the HBA Advisory Committee, Jen again, JP, and Renee, and Frank, who's not here, for nominating me and for supporting me this last year when I worked to break barriers. I want to recognize my husband, Jason Bologna, who's sitting back there, and he's also a lawyer, and I wouldn't be the lawyer that I am today if it weren't for his love, his support, and his unvarnished opinions. Gracias, mi amor. My parents came to this country just before I was born, and they, when I was growing up, would say two things over and over again. En la casa se habla español. Y este es el mejor país del mundo. We speak Spanish at home, and this is the best country in the world. They gave me the gift of a second language, and they gave me a love of country that I still hold today. I live the American dream because of their sacrifices and because the greatness of this country. And through public service, I have worked to pay it forward. And I have, through my public service, I have very early in my career seen that there needed to be fair-minded people in the criminal justice system, people who could advocate for our community and for people of color. And so I decided to serve and pay it forward as a prosecutor. And I have done that now for over 20 years. And it has been the greatest privilege of a life to serve my community in this way, as I have represented at the same time the United States of America. I can tell you, sadly though, that we are so underrepresented in these positions that it has to change, that we have to keep pressing to have greater representation in these positions of power. And so I say to all of you in this room, please consider public service, especially to the law students, because our communities need you, our country needs you. And I will share with you today that I will do everything I can to lift you up, just as all of you here are lifting me up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And now it's my honor to introduce our Lifetime Achievement Award for this year. You all know her very, very well. There's a lengthy bio here. I'm just not going to do it. But there's a lot here. She was a judge for a very long time. Rather than talk through her extraordinary credentials, which include not only St. Mary's College, but also a graduate degree from the University of Chicago, which is an okay school, and then a law degree from Georgetown University, and a number of years on the bench. I'll tell you a personal story. Judge Sarmina was the judge during my very, very first trial. I was 28 years old. She was kind enough to stare at me relentlessly for a week and a half, and occasionally I would look up and catch her in the middle of my adversary's questioning, staring at me like this. I see, like this. And I would go, objection. And she would go, basis? I would, relevance? Sustained. Excellent objection. I appreciate you doing that for me, Judge. I always have. I really appreciate you. The Honorable Judge Teresa Sarmina.
Thank you, JP. Good evening. When I got the news that I had been selected to receive Diaz Lifetime Achievement Award, I was totally caught by surprise. In fact, I was in Puerto Rico, and at first I thought I was going to have to speak with you by Zoom. I'm really happy to instead be here speaking to you in person tonight. And I'm so very, very humbled to have been selected for this honor. Let me begin by thanking Hernan Guaracao for creating this event. Yes. The Aldea Top Lawyers event. But let me also acknowledge him for his close to a lifetime of dedication to being the publisher of Aldea. His vision and commitment have helped the community and all of us in so many ways. I also want to acknowledge the Hispanic Bar Association for its leadership throughout the years and for its long-standing support. In particular, tonight I want to acknowledge the Advisory Committee for Aldea, led by Jennifer Gomez and JP Faunas, as well as its other members, Renee Garcia and Frank Lafontaine, for their part concerning tonight's event. And congratulations to my fellow award recipients tonight, Kathy Gomez, Henri Marcial, Lorena Almada, Alex Gonzalez, and AUSA Maria Carrillo, all of whom have worked very hard in our profession to receive these recognitions. And of course, I want to warmly welcome to Philadelphia Ramona Romero, ay Dios, tonight's keynote speaker, who is such an outstanding person, attorney, and leader, and who will again feature in my remarks momentarily. I'm currently a senior judge, although since the pandemic hit, I haven't been called on to perform any service. I was elected to the bench in 1997 and retired in August of 2019. So, what led me to the bench? No, it wasn't working as law clerk for the judge we all know and love, and who went on from the bench for an entire additional career, Judge Nelson Diaz. Nelson is who brought me to Philadelphia from Washington, and he was instrumental in my development as a young attorney. But it was my disappointment in some of the judges before whom I appeared as an assistant district attorney that made me realize I could do better in presiding over trials than they were doing. I always had a very strong sense of justice, and from my perspective, they didn't care about that. Some of them actually went to jail after federal convictions. Having gone through real hardships to become lawyers, and often working much harder than our colleagues, can lead us to let that get in the way of focusing on long-term goals, that bigger picture, our future. That has been one of my faults on more than one occasion. I left the DA's office after 5 years to go work in the Attorney General's office here in Pennsylvania, a position where I learned a great deal and was able to move up in that office. But it also took me out of Philadelphia, where I lived. It took me several years to realize that I had not been doing anything to pursue that idea to become a trial judge. So I got more serious about trying to make that happen. Trying to figure out how to run for election to become a judge was an entire job in itself. And it took me more than one try to finally make it. I ultimately just took the plunge, quit my job, which can be a very scary thing to do, and focused 100% of my time on getting elected. At heart, I am an introvert, even though many people don't believe that. And it doesn't come naturally to me to reach out to people I don't know to seek their support. You have to push yourself and really network and follow up again and again. Not easy things for me. But somehow, ultimately, it worked out. But I couldn't have made it without the unfailing support of my late husband and many dear friends, such as Alba Martinez, who is here tonight, and Laura Luna, who became my first law clerk, Ken Trujillo, Pedro Ramos, Nelson, and the backing of the HBA and many others throughout the city. I loved being a trial judge. My husband said it suited me. And I was assigned right from the start to the criminal trial division, a setting which was already so familiar to me. I was good at my job, and 1 year turned into another. I was respected. I had a solid reputation, tough, but also very fair. Always committed to following the law, even if that wasn't the decision I had been leaning to make. I only had a couple of mentors on the bench, and one of them urged me to try and get assigned to the homicide unit. She said many of the attorneys were of far better caliber and that the issues would be much more challenging. I served 10 years in that assignment. I liked challenging. Every case is significant, if not to the system, surely to the person accused of crime, as well as to those who he or she may have victimized. Towards the end of my 10 years, I had 2 very high-profile cases, difficult cases. Soon after that, I asked to go to the Civil Trial Division. One of the cases was the trial of Monsignor Lin, who was found guilty by the jury of facilitating the assignment of a priest to a setting where there were young boys present when he knew that priest had credibly been accused of previously sexually assaulting young boys. The other very high-profile case was that of Terence Williams, who had been sentenced to death decades earlier. His case had gone up and back a number of times, but when it was assigned to me, the U.S. Supreme Court had just denied cert. This was his final motion for a hearing, and as a judge, you should always have ears that are willing to hear, no matter how difficult the case. Although the law does not allow that relief be granted in all cases. After very difficult review and hearings and argument, I did order that a new penalty phase hearing be held. My decision was unanimously overturned by our Supreme Court. And for reasons that did not directly flow from my ultimate ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and sent it back. Ultimately, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court affirmed my earlier decision. I said I was going to bring up Ramona Romero, ay Dios mío, again, and this is it. Remember I told you I'm not always so good at following up? I had a serious interest in being appointed to federal court, and during one of the HNBA meetings that I was at, Ramona met with me, and she shared with me certain things I could and should do that might help make that possible. Well, I didn't follow through, and certainly not soon after she had given me the information, advice, and perspective that she had, and it was excellent. When I came back to her at some point down the line, I knew she was mad at me, certainly disappointed. So I blew that potential opportunity. I hope you have forgiven me, Ramona. But from my vantage point at this time in my life, I have no real regrets. Mistakes, I've made them, definitely. And you're going to make some too. Don't let them define you. Learn from them. And looking back, I think about the fact that if I had gone to federal court, I wouldn't have had those 2 very important matters I've already told you about, as well as a number of others. Nor would I have presided over the 5-month-long trial of the tragic Market Street building collapse. Yes. The longest case in Pennsylvania history. Yes. I think my experience and my strength made a real difference. I also would not have had the opportunity to grant new trials in a number of homicide cases over which I had presided earlier. And so sometimes staying right where you are is good enough. And I don't mean that in the sense that you settle. I mean that in the sense that you are satisfied with where you are. We don't have to always be reaching higher. So what advice do I have to offer? Work hard, do the right thing, be on time, know yourself, What do you really want to do? Where do you want to end up? I almost ended up in a place I think I would have hated, an intermediate appellate court. Thank God I lost that election. The trial court was a much better place for me. Definitely try to do better than I have done in following up and in a timely manner. Identify your own obstacles and work hard to overcome them. When you go to someone for guidance and they decide to help you, do it. Keep your focus. You might miss the one opportunity that could lead you to a wonderful new career. And I'm not suggesting that you should all try to become judges. Not everyone is meant to be a judge, and it can be a very lonely and demanding role. Although, I would like more Latina and Latino, Latinx attorneys to pursue the bench. And although it has been many years since I knew the nitty-gritty, and it can get nitty-gritty, of being elected, if you are interested, I would be happy to meet with any one of you. So that's another bit of advice. Don't hesitate to identify someone you think would be a good mentor for you and who can be honest with you. There are so many times we don't even know what we don't know. A mentor can save you so much time trying to figure it all out on your own. You might need to get some guidance on how best to approach that person, but don't talk yourself out of doing that. And that leads me to my last bit of advice. This comes from an attorney who didn't even like me, but the advice she gave has stuck with me, and I pass it on often. She said, don't give yourself the no. That's N-O. Don't be a downer to yourself. Don't think you won't be supported. Don't think you can't succeed. Don't think they're not going to want you. There will be plenty who tell you all of those things, but don't you be the one to do it. In closing, I would like to honor my parents, both of whom are now deceased. My rebellious nature was forged because of my father. But he also had the highest standards and expected us to excel, to unfailingly do the right things, and to meet our obligations. From my mom, I got that sense of justice and of fairness, a love of reading and learning, of adventure and travel. Thank you for listening, and thank you for this recognition. Thank you, Aldia. Thank you, HBA.
Thank you so much, Judge. Just her like that every day of my, just like this. What are you doing? Just thank you. It's so, you say these things and it's so effortless for you, and you're so without pretense. And the things you say, my mother would call them pearls. We just, it's easy for you, but you mean the world to us, and you're a legend, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank all of you, really. It means, I hope you guys feel the way that I do. This is a challenging job. These are challenging times, and it's refreshing. It's invigorating to just be here with you and to see you. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our sponsors, Kleinbard and Bernard College and Cap Law, and thank you to our partners here at the Pyramid Club, and thank you so much to the advisory committee and to Aldia. And I feel like there's one, Burger Montag, thank you so much for your sponsorship, and we very much appreciate all of your time and being here tonight. Have a great evening. Thanks so much.